Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Greetings, boys and girls. This is your host, Jonathan Levy, and today I'm excited to be diving into our first of many podcasts exploring physical health and human performance. My guest today is Erwan, the founder of MoveNat. MoveNat is an unconventional school of physical training emphasizing a broader understanding of human movement and of health. The point of all this is, of course, to improve strength, but also mobility, agility, and just about every physical performance attribute you can think of. Throughout the interview, though, we go far beyond physical performance, and we start to tackle some of the big questions about modern lifestyles, happiness, and the future of human well-being as a whole. Erwan is not your everyday human, and his fitness philosophy is not your everyday gym routine. He and his unique methodology have been featured in Men's Health and Outside Magazine, just to name a couple. I really enjoyed this interview, and I found Erwan's insights to be both thought-provoking and inspiring. And for this reason, I'm very excited to introduce you to Mr. Erwan Lecour. Erwan, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, and thank you so much for making the time for us.
For sure, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Let me tell you, I was watching a bunch of your videos in preparation for this and just thinking how much fun it looks like you're having. I mean, you're climbing up trees, jumping off rocks, lifting stuff, throwing stuff. You know, it really looks like a really fun methodology, and I'm so excited to learn more about it today.
Not that I do that every day, all right? But yeah, certainly it's a fun kind of tough training.
Definitely. And it looks like a lot more fun than sitting in the gym and doing bench press.
You know, nothing beats nature. So this movement, I call it a movement behavior that is natural, and it's a universal thing. So yeah, we've created so many varieties of physical training, physical exercise programs and methodologies. But originally we had one program, and that program was to move how nature intends us to. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think nature intended us to do, chest flies and all kinds of unnatural movements like bicep curls.
Well, it's also part of human culture, movement culture. It's a cultural thing, and it's sometimes a scientific thing. And, humans create methods. They love to create methods. They love to systematize what they do. They love to be creative, and that's the beauty of it. But at some point, it's also the things we invent have us go away from the original approach, from what's there already, naturally, biologically, evolutionarily. And sometimes there's more loss to it than gain, I believe. But,
That's something that I experienced myself. I mean, I wrote a blog post recently talking about how from 15 years of age, I was doing what I thought was a healthy gym routine, lifting weights, doing all the kind of exercises that I thought were improving my body, and having chronic pain in my knees, chronic pain in my shoulders, things that, a healthy 20-year-old should not have. And it came to my attention that it was because my workout was garbage, and I was doing, exactly like you said, more harm than help.
By nature, we are driven to embrace approaches, behaviors that most people do. So basically, most of the fitness industry currently is still based on muscle isolation, the dichotomy between cardio and strength, and this kind of what I actually call very old school approach to fitness. And at the same time, it's very new school in the sense that, compared to the scope of, human evolution and how many centuries and millenniums we've spent as a species in nature, moving naturally in complex environments with natural movements, then the history of fitness, the recent history of fitness, makes stuff like that, like training in a gym with machines and isolating muscles, make it something actually extremely new. It's complete novelty. But at the same time, I believe it's soon going to become old school. I think we're on the verge of being returned to more practical, more natural approach to physical training.
I hope you're right. I think that's a massive trend, and I think you're actually at the forefront of it. You're the founder, as I told my audience in the beginning of the podcast, you're the founder of a movement called MoveNat. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also what is MoveNat?
Sure. So I am almost 44 years old, and I was born in France and raised in France. Luckily, where I grew up, we had woods just nearby with lots of big rocks, big boulders. And not only that, environment was available, this natural environment was available right there, but my dad took me there, pushed me to climb trees, to jump from rock to rock, to crawl and balance and do all these things in a very spontaneous way, in a very non-systematic way. He didn't have a program. He just had an instinct that I had to do that the same way he did when he was a kid. So I basically grew up not doing much sports, like kids could do tennis or soccer, football, and stuff like that. I basically played in the woods, like moved in the woods. And that's my upbringing. And when I went to school, the physical education there did not convince me at all. Say I would learn to play volleyball. And that was fun. That was okay, but I didn't like the rules. I didn't like the having to stop and resume the game all the time. What I did on my own in the woods was much more exciting, much more fun, much more challenging. Running up and down the hills and do all these things, to me, that was real freedom. That was pure excitement. And nothing that I did in school in terms of PE ever compared to that excitement and that satisfaction. And later on, I did start to, do judo, lots of karate, some swimming. And then that I've learned a lot through a variety of specialized sports, including long-distance triathlon and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Olympic weightlifting, rock climbing, trail running, a lot of practical sports, actually, like that, with specialized sports, but with practical benefit. And I did learn the value of a specialized approach, but I also learned that it was not satisfying in the sense that the completeness of physical competency was missing in all of his different sports. And I wanted to go back to a more complete approach to my physical training. So long story short, I discovered that ancient methods have existed before where people would train all these different natural movement skills, practical movement skills, climbing, running, jumping, but all together, not as specialized sports, not as competition sports, but as an overall approach to your physical and mental training so that you're ready for the physical demands of the real life. Mm-hmm. And this, to me, was fascinating because that's what I did and that's what I loved, and realized that it was missing in today's fitness industry, sports industry, and I decided that it would be my mission and my vision to bring this back to popularity, to mainstream awareness and practice for the benefit of people. And, I decided to fully commit and dedicate myself to bringing this back to the world. And I'm making it happen, actually. And I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, but I'm definitely there doing it, and I'm really enjoying it.
So would it be fair to say then that it seems that MoveNat is very naturally inspired? It's about thinking about how your body is evolved to be used and what it excels at doing and what is natural for it. It almost sounds like MoveNat is to fitness what the Paleo diet is to nutrition. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that is fair. Actually, I'm going to tell you what I really think is that I think that MoveNat is the real Paleo fitness, because it's not about just putting your 5 fingers on and doing handstand against a tree and say that's Paleo fitness. It's about actually moving naturally, means that this complete range of evolutionarily natural movement skills that we practice. We always seek adaptability, practicality of the movements we do, adaptability of the movements we do. And that is, to me, authentically evolutionary. I'm not trying to mimic ancestors that, we can only assume what they used to do. We're actually looking at physical training and competency and preparedness that actually works in the real life, in the world of today. And that can be in nature, that can be in artificial or urban environments. It doesn't matter. The needs when it comes to potentially challenging or vital situations, the movement requirements are strictly the same. You still need to sprint or run long, or you still need to climb. You still need maybe to lift and carry somebody. You still need to do all these things. So you see, it's not about replicating some so-called ancestral principles. It's actually understanding that the necessity of the real life has not really changed. We make it look like it's all optional to move today. People could just sit and stand, walk a few steps to the next sit, and do that all day. And a lot of people do that. And a lot of people can't operate their body in practical ways, and they're not even embarrassed about it. But the society envision and the competency I envision for every individual is to be equipped with this fundamental, real-life, practical competency, physical competency, that they can use and rely on for a lifetime. And I'd like to live in a society where I know that everybody has such equipment, if I may say. It's a little like you want to live in a world where everybody at least can read and write,
Of course.
Right? So it's part of a universal education in whichever language, but at least you can read and write. You can communicate, share information, learn from each other. I believe that this physical competency I'm talking about is equally important, is equally part of a universal education and knowledge that everybody should possess.
I love that. And that makes me think of two different things. One is that I love the fact that the goal of MoveNat is more to be a well-rounded, properly equipped human being rather than to look good at the beach, which I think is a lot of traditional gym behavior. You can't really justify why you would do bicep curls or bench press. It's not really a usable movement.
Well, no, actually, you can easily, Jonathan, you can actually very easily justify why you would do that instead, because you have cosmetics expectations.
Exactly.
You want your body to look good or to look a certain way, like a cover magazine, fitness magazine or something like that. And in some ways, I would say that there's nothing wrong in wanting your body to look good. And that's probably also an evolutionary drive. Because when your body looks good, then people pay attention and, you're, more attractive, more successful, more popular in some ways. That's an evolutionary thing.
Certainly.
But it's the approach that's maybe it's not from a biological standpoint of, say, you're a human animal. You need your body to move well and in ways that are conducive to better survival, not just better reproduction, but just better survival in the first place. That's very evolutionary. You don't need to outrun the lion. You need to outrun all other people in your tribe.
Right.
That's a cruel image, but so we have created this whole fitness industry that's for the most part, not all of it, but for the most part, is still based on telling people that they need to look good.
Yes.
And to go through completely artificial movements and program to get to that goal. But yeah, it's not profoundly satisfying because...
Well, at some point, you're going to be broken. You're going to be in the situation where you can't move your hips and your knees hurt all the time and, your shoulders are rolled forward. Speaking from experience, it took me 26 years to figure out that I wasn't standing up straight. I wasn't getting up. When I get up in the morning out of bed, I wasn't using my knees correctly. It's a shame that the human body doesn't come with the owner's manual. And we all have these really, really unhealthy movement patterns. And you see just the most amazing things. I met a woman in actually a yoga retreat in India, and we were talking about different kind of injuries we were hoping to overcome. She told me, one day last year, I was dancing in my kitchen while I was cooking, and I went up onto my toes, and I felt a pop. in the back of my leg. And I said, what pop? She said, my Achilles tendon tore. I said, you're telling me that you were dancing around, you went up on your toes on one foot, and your Achilles tendon tore? Yep. So 6 months, recovery, surgery, the whole deal. That's not the normal state of the human body. It's certainly not.
Well, no, yeah, your Achilles tendon are supposed to be extremely strong, actually. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the problem is that, okay, and that's not to try to give people a hard time or in any way, but the observation is that most people are physically idle their entire life.
Exactly.
So every day, what is it that they do? Okay, so they rest at night on a bed, they wake up, they stand, they go sit somewhere, in the kitchen to have a breakfast. Mm-hmm. And then, a few more steps, get dressed, everything, probably commute in a bus, in a train, in a car to go to work. Mm-hmm. So they sit, and then they get in that cubicle, and then they sit for hours and work hours a day sitting, or sitting from home, working from home. And then when it's finally time to, in the evening to do something else, then they go on the couch and watch TV or, do more Facebook, do more social media, and they sit. Yeah. And then finally they go to bed. All right. So in terms of movement, frequency, and volume, it's very, very, there's no volume of movement, very little volume of movement, there's little intensity of movement, there's little frequency of movement, and there's also very little variety of movement. Our movement behaviors today are extremely poor. It's a movement impoverished lifestyle and behavior that we collectively have embraced. And that is costing us because biologically we haven't changed, and our biology, our DNA, our cells, our memory, our body expect us still to move a lot every day in very, very diverse ways. I mean, you look at hunter-gatherers, which we all used to be at one point of our history. And, it's walking a lot every day, walking on uneven terrains. With barefoot or with minimal shoes, and then they kneel, and then they do sit, but they sit in plenty of different ways.
Yeah,
and they probably are going to climb a little, or they're going to jump maybe a little, they're going to balance a little, they're going to crawl a little, they're going to lift and carry stuff. They're going to do all these movements in so many varied ways, and so they have bodies that are really strong, coordinated, balanced, resilient. And compared to them, we're really completely, we're degenerated.
Right.
And that's, it has nothing to do with, whatever your background is, where you were born, what's your skin color, your age, your gender. It doesn't matter. It's a universal issue. And even the people who exercise, that's good. But most of the time, it's going to be the 3 hours a week model. Okay, I exercise an hour, 3 times a week. Okay. Well, it's better than nothing, but hey, that's not a movement lifestyle. The bulk of your wake time, you're still sitting or still doing nothing, and that still hurts you. And when you exercise, you're probably going to do something like, a bit of cardio on the elliptical, and then some strength training, trying to isolate body parts, trying to isolate muscles. And the body does not work in isolation. So you're not even moving, you're exercising. Mm-hmm. That's completely different. You treat and approach your body as if you were a machine of some sort that needs a bit of maintenance. And so no wonder that people lose a lot of their mobility. They lose a lot of their bone density. There's so many functions, including the functions of your organs. At every physiological level, this deficiency in movement is a deficiency in body function, physiological function, in brain function. Because, we have a body so that we can move, but we have a brain so that we can move too. So the primary function of the brain is movement, complex movement within complex environments. Now you remove the behavior, which is movement, then you have a deficit in brain function. And that for whoever is interested in creativity, in productivity, even from a business perspective, you'd better be starting moving in natural ways that are, again, complex, adaptable, because that's going to boost your brain function, and that's going to carry over to every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I teach my students is if you really, really want to solidify your learning, and we teach, accelerated learning, move, get out there, even if you're just going to go for a run, but ideally, you're doing yoga, you're moving, you're getting to different positions and you're exercising strength, because the endorphins and just getting your body moving will get the brain at its optimal level of performance.
Right, exactly. And any type of physical effort, physical exertion, and then any type of movement is good for you, okay? But it's especially good when two aspects are present. One is the frequency. You don't want to have like a beautiful session of complex movement, great for brain function, but basically you do that once a week. An hour. Okay, well, you better do that 5 times a day for 5 or 10 minutes every day. And it's going to be much more productive, much more beneficial to brain function than a weekly or a bi-weekly session.
Absolutely.
So that's number. Yeah. And then, you have intensity, high intensity. That's going to be great for human growth hormone and endorphins, dopamine, everything. All these hormones, our emotions, so much of what we are, even mentally, has to do with hormones, and therefore have to do with overall lifestyle, including, of course, movement and diet and all of that.
Right.
And that second aspect is complexity and adaptability. So, for instance, dancing and yoga are, especially more dancing than yoga actually, but it's about complex movements. Okay. But at the same time, a complex movement that does not interact with the environment except for, a flat floor. Now, when you interact with the environment in adaptable ways, and that's the natural movement that I'm talking about, it's not just the mindfulness that matters, and the mindfulness as the body-mind connection, which is so beautiful and so important, and so it is present in mindful practices such as dance, such as yoga, such as Tai Chi, and that's a beautiful thing. But when you move naturally, you need to connect the mind to the body, to the environment. And that's, in my opinion, higher level of mindfulness, because you're dealing with an environment and, variables in terms of height, distance, angles, surfaces, unstable surfaces, slippery surfaces, changing surfaces. And your body in your brain needs to do so many calculations, so many adjustments, so that the body follows in a way that is effective and efficient through that environment. Now, let me tell you that contrary to what a lot of people still think, we're not in that military obstacle course, brute strength configuration anymore. Not at all. We are in a highly mindful situation where if you are not paying attention at the highest degree, you're going to lose in efficiency, and potentially you're going to lose in effectiveness. It means you can fall, for instance. The movement may fail. So we have a direct way to assess the effectiveness and efficiency of movement. You can judge the good form of yoga pose, but by its form. Okay, it looks good. Knees in a good position, hand is in good position, and you're trying to replicate a predefined form that has been established maybe thousands of years ago by somebody, basically. And you're trying to replicate exactly the same poses. Okay. Well, when you're climbing the tree, when you're jumping over the fence, when you're lifting and carrying that load, and you may think, it's just, spontaneous, it's basically basic, it's unevolved. Well, actually, it's extremely evolved because it's adaptable.
Yeah.
So high levels of mindfulness here required.
Absolutely. So I want to come back to mindfulness. I'm glad you brought it up. But first, I'm dying of curiosity. What is a traditional not traditional, but what does a MoveNat workout look like?
You want to envision people who are going through a variety of movements, and we have all these natural movement skills. So we're talking about crawling, and crawling includes sitting, kneeling, and then walking, and then transition, getting up and down from standing positions to the ground and vice versa. And then you have balancing, jumping, running, climbing. You have manipulative skills. You lift and carry stuff. You throw and catch stuff. So all these movements are natural in the sense that they are practical. They could be used in natural environments or in real life situations. And they're adaptable to contextual demands and variables. So the context is made of, again, the environment where you are. That can be different. So when you climb, you're not always climbing the same way, because you're not always climbing the same stuff. And adaptable to the situations. Do you have time, or are you in a state of urgency? Is it safe, or is there a level of danger and stuff like that?
Incredible. So is there any kind of equipment that is needed for this kind of workout, or is it an outdoor, or is it always changing? I get the sense that it's always very varied and changing and responding to whatever environment is available to you and your students.
All right. So all of that is possible. The primary goal is to embrace that movement behavior that is natural to all human beings. Not everybody does Tai Chi. You got to learn Tai Chi. And then you've got to choose to do it, to practice it. And again, it's a wonderful internal energy practice. But you go anywhere in the world and people know what running means. They know what jumping means. They know what climbing means. They know what lifting and carrying means. They may not do it, or they may not do it every day, and they may not do it very well, because maybe their lifestyle, their personal practice does not really take care of these skills. But these are universal skills that we all did, at least when we were kids. Now, MoveNat, it's the method, it's the system for the practice of these natural movements, which I call natural movement. And a method means that it's designed to improve ourselves, to improve what we would do naturally in the sense of spontaneously, and to make it better, to make it more effective and more efficient. That's what systems and methods are designed for. So it's not about being a jackass, go in the woods and jump around and sprain an ankle and be like, okay, well, I'm too old. This is not for me. I'm going to get back to my desk and on my couch and watch TV. It's about providing to everyone, regardless of background and current physical condition, the means to get started with such practice, such movements, in a way that is safe, in a way that is progressive, and in a way that teaches, that makes you learn good positions, good form, efficient movement, a little, techniques. It's a little like a martial art. Anybody could go in the street and start a fight. And we all at least may defend ourselves in some ways, but that does not make us good fighters or martial artists. So the martial artist is the person who mindfully, systematically learns and trains techniques to be a good fighter and to usually never have to use their skills.
Yeah.
Okay. So MoveNat is the same approach. First, you establish that foundation of quality movement through learning techniques. You can run better, you can jump better, you can lift and carry better if you learn the techniques. And then, based on that, you are going to bring your strength and conditioning at a higher level of, strength, endurance, speed, all these different qualities.
Absolutely.
So, it's so different than going to the global gym, trying to target your leg day and then arm day, and then, that's how conventionally we were used to train. 2 days my leg day, I'm training my legs. Tomorrow I'll do my upper body.
Yeah.
Well, we're telling you move your whole body every day. Yeah. Because you're a whole unit, you're a whole person, and through movements. The muscles are not the finality. The muscles are the means, they're the tools, the muscles and the joints and the bones. And, ultimately it's about improving your quality of life, having a better experience of who you are, acquiring higher levels of self-esteem, of self-love, of self-worth. And through movement, you can really experience a lot of that. You can really self-empower.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I imagine that at your level of fitness, and you mentioned proper diet and consistency before, I imagine you probably have some kind of strong opinions on diet and nutrition. What do you eat and what do you recommend that your students eat?
Every aspect of your life matters. Every aspect of your life you can assess mindfully and mindfully improve.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to approach who we are and what we do in a very compartmentalized way. So there's the work compartment and the leisure compartment. There's the diet compartment, and then there is the fitness compartment, and then there is the health compartment, and then there is the love compartment, and then there's the social. Or listen, this is delusional because we fragment ourselves every day, but we're not fragmented. We're whole. So, yeah, of course, what you eat matters because everything matters. Everything, because what we're looking for, that we are conscious of it or not, are high levels of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all about energy because we're all made of energy. And when we feel depressed, that's lower levels of energy. When we drink an energy drink, it's because we expect that it's going to, give us higher levels of energy. Yeah, everything we do alters, in a good way or not, these quality of energies and levels of energy. So, yeah, food, obviously, what you eat. But I like to say that everybody's on a diet. Because even the people who say, I don't care, I would eat anything.
That's a dietary choice.
That's a dietary choice. And actually, as a matter of fact, the people who say that are usually the people who eat a lot of junk food.
Right.
And who would not eat actual fruits or veggies because they don't like it. That's a diet. You're selective. We're all selective. Everybody's selective about everything. Food-wise, same thing. So ask yourself, why do you want to be selective? Well, it's because you want satisfaction. So you can be satisfied with what you eat because of the taste, and you can be satisfied with what you eat not only because of the taste, but because of the nutrition and how we impact your health, your levels of energy, and all. So what I recommend is, because there are so many schools of diet and nutrition, and people who are paleo, people who are vegan, and they're like completely different. And then there are the people who try to calculate how many, their calorie intake and stuff like that. Well, what I believe, most importantly, eat food that is unprocessed, that is as fresh as possible, that is organic, grass-fed, non-GMO. Means the quality of a produce is super, super important. So choose right and eat food that you cook,
right?
Not prepared processed food. Eat as much as you can food that you cook, and eat as much as you can food that is healthy in the sense of it's clean, it's not polluted by pesticides and all type of crap. And, it's fresh, it's local as much as possible. So if you could do that, then that's going to really improve your health.
Absolutely.
And then if you want to eat meat, eat meat. If you don't want to eat meat, then don't eat meat. Find proteins in a different way. And if it works for you, then fine. But you see, there's a huge difference between industrial milk that's heavily processed and milk that's local and raw and grass-fed and stuff like that. Okay, so there's a huge difference between a fruit that has been grown locally without pesticides and with lots of care from the people who grow the land and live on the land, and fruits that have been grown artificially indoors and that are heavily contaminated by pollutants. So that's my recommendation. It's not so much about that specific diet. You can be vegan or be paleo based on absolutely crappy food.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair, and I think a lot of people do that.
So it doesn't matter if you're going to be eating meat or vegetarian or vegan or eat more carbs or eat more fat, but what you put in your body, make sure it's of the highest quality.
Yeah, it reminds me actually of Michael Pollan's book. He wrote this book called An Eater's Manifesto. And in the end, he summarizes it up as 3 statements, which are eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And the whole chapter about eat food is essentially what you're saying, that things that most people put in their mouth, the white bread you pick up, the milk that you eat, the cheese that's been processed, the lunch meat, it's not food. It's a food-like product. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing because you really can't trust most packaged foods.
Exactly. When you pay attention, when you're mindful in your life, you start to get a sense of how input, whatever that input is, alters your levels of energy and ultimately who you are, how you think, how you perform, how you look, how you feel. And so movement is an input, food is an input, thought, emotion is an input, relationships are input, what you read, what you watch, all of that is an input.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is that you can choose, you can be very selective with what input you choose. And when you look more, when you tend more towards nature, what's natural, then it's very likely that you're going to be healthier. Why? Because we have this amazing ability that's beautiful, we humans as a whole, to reinvent ourselves culturally, socially, professionally. Your style, your beard, your glasses, your clothing, whatever. Okay, where you live, the people you hang out with. We can reinvent ourselves at all these levels. There's one aspect that we cannot really reinvent ourselves. It's our biology, it's our nature. And I know there's that whole, biohacking thing, going on, but the truth is that they're not reinventing anything.
They're optimizing.
They are just relearning, rediscovering that nature freaking rules. And they just come up with some scientific validation for it. But things that ancient humans have been knowing forever, and we've just lost in the process of civilization and industrialization and greater levels of technology in our lives. So that's all it is. So we cannot reinvent ourselves biologically. Whenever we try to do that, we have to pay a price. You want to live in a city because it's fun, because there's more, museums and distractions and stuff. Good. You're going to pay a price. Why? Well, because you are going to breathe air that is polluted, because you're going to be constantly stimulated, which is not natural, by artificial type of stimulation, which is not natural, noises all the time, people you don't know all the time, constant agitation, constant technologies, microwaves, FM waves, stuff. It's all over. And so, yeah, you're going to enjoy that urban life, but your body, biologically, you will pay a price. You're not going to move a lot. You're always going to look at walls. You're never going to see a horizon, or to look at the sky and look at the change of light, natural light, and you're never going to see animals. You're never going to enjoy silence. You're never going to smell the earth after rain and all these things, right? And all these things, they're not optional to your biology. They're not optional. It doesn't matter. We think we're evolved and civilized, and we are, but we're still not free from our nature, our biological nature. And for people interested in transcendence and singularity and stuff like that, I'm telling you, this is bullshit. You'll go nowhere with that. There's a design. Doesn't matter where it comes from. There's a biological design for us. We can find technologies, for instance, medical technologies that are going to heal us, and that's beautiful. But if you don't pay attention to your lifestyle, it doesn't matter how advanced medical technologies are. My friend, you're still in a state of survival. So how about that? How about a new type of humanism that is not about dominating nature and abusing nature anymore, but that would be about a very wise use of our brilliant technologies, very wisely, but while also returning to more natural ways of life, so that we don't spend our energy and time trying to use these technologies to compensate for the damages that they create in our bodies, in our minds.
What are a few different changes that you foresee that could be really impactful? I mean, you mentioned living in cities is probably something that we should try to shy away. What are some other adjustments that you would like to see happening in kind of our cultural evolution?
Again, a greater return to natural life ways.
So more movement, better diet.
Living closer to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting more to nature. Taking the time to put your smartphone away so that you actually look at the sky and it's moving in the sky and the rain and the tree and the movement of the branches, pushed by a slight breeze of wind. All these things on Facebook or YouTube that show you the beauty of nature, but actually be there.
Yeah.
Actually enjoy it for real. I mean, how much virtuality do people need? What's very ironical is that in that quest for virtual worlds, people are constantly seeking greater sense of realness in the virtual world. Well, what about you freaking connect with nature with reality itself?
It's funny you say that because one of my goals for this year is to spend a minimum of 3 to 4 days every month just in nature. And I've been kind of working towards it and going on hiking trips. And I've seen just this, exactly what you said, this huge impact in my mindfulness, and my mood is better. And it's much more than just the vitamin D. But one thing that I've noticed, you talked a lot about agility and uneven surface. I was hiking in South Africa a few weeks ago. And at some point I was wearing these, traditional kind of hiking shoes with a flat bottom and all kinds of rubber and everything. And my feet were miserable. And I decided I was going to hike up the mountain completely barefoot. And it was just a rush of endorphins. And it felt so good to have kind of dirt between my toes. And it was this completely uplifting feeling that I certainly don't get living in a city year round.
You've had a nature experience that was like an epiphany, recharging your body, releasing some of the, because nature does that and releases you of, some energy charge, emotional charges. It's so sophisticated and so deep that you don't even want to try to put that into a conceptual knowledge with curves on the screen and stuff like that. You want to fully enjoy the intuition, because intuition is that very ancient form of intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
We're all endowed with, but that not everybody nurtures it. But when you do, you have experiences like the one that you've described, and a lot happens without you intentionally doing anything. Just be there in that environment, because that environment is you. It's not a romantic idea. We're made of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Every cell in our body is made of nature. All the minerals, everything. And our body cannot function outside of this earth environment with gravity and with the sun and the air and all of that. So when you mess up with that environment, you mess up with yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm not just talking about the, environmental destruction and stuff like that. When you mess up with that environment in terms of, where you live and, what you breathe, what you drink, what you eat, what you hear, all these things, and how you behave physically and mentally, all this is your environment. And you can choose that environment to be better, to improve, and that's always on a natural basis. So maybe a lot of people are going to think, I don't have time, I don't have, I have work, I have to study, and I wish this was a reality. Well, okay, maybe set your priorities right to begin with. And secondly, if you cannot make it happen overnight, you can always organize yourself to systematically, progressively, every day you're going to make steps in the direction where you want to be. And if that direction means that you're a person who is successful professionally or, business-wise, and that's great, but he's also a person who's successful at a health levels, energy, personal energy levels, enjoyment, happiness, love, all these things. You can organize yourself to design the life you want, the way you want, and it starts now.
Mm-hmm. And it's a choice. And so there are strategies, and movement is one of these strategies, and nutrition is one of these strategies,
And living more or spending more time in nature is one of the strategies. It's part of the same strategy, actually. Because, if you enjoy science and being in a lab all day your whole life, and that's who you are and makes you happy, then it's great. You don't have to change anything. But in case you realize how much nature matters to you and to actually all of us, then give it a shot. Go there. Move more. Move naturally. Be in nature. Eat more natural food. Spend the time to reflect on the importance of these perceptions and behaviors that are ultimately going to make you a much better person, a much more healthier, more satisfied, happier person. Because if you are that person, then you do contribute. But if you're an unhealthy person, depressed, you may contribute in other ways, but this world really needs people who are freaking happy and healthy and just full of life.
Absolutely. So I have to ask, Erwan, you're a very, very busy man. You're working on a book, I saw. You do DVDs, you consult, you obviously teach workshops, and you're very busy spreading your movement. So I'm very curious, how do you motivate yourself?
I don't. I don't, because, listen, when what you do is an extension of who you are, it's a manifestation of your psyche, of your spirit, and then it's effortless. So it's easy. Because you love what you do, because it's an expression of who you are as a person, what you believe in, what you like to do, and that's what I've created for myself. I'm not even telling you, hey, I'm lucky I can do that. I'm not lucky, I just created it. The same way, Jonathan, you created it. So it's about design. It's about your own design. So when you are in that place where, again, what you do is aligned with who you are, then everything is flawless and is just flowful, if I may say, right? So if you don't know who you are, figure that out first so that you can do something that's aligned with who you are, and then you'll be happy. And then motivation is easy because it's just everything is natural. Sometimes you need motivation. Most of the time you need motivation, even when, say, you like what you do, you enjoy what you do. It's a natural thing for you to do what you do. But sometimes you have timelines or deadlines, and then that's when you have to work harder, and that's when you have to motivate yourself more. Mm-hmm. So in order to avoid that, I prefer to choose like sliding timelines instead of like super strict deadlines. Right? Because that's when you start to stress yourself out, because you have a deadline to meet, and then you're not paying attention anymore to signals of fatigue or frustration, or, how you approach time is very important in life.
Absolutely.
When you want to do too much, too soon, too fast, that's when you self-stress. And it's good to be motivated. It's good to be organized. It's good to even have, sometimes deadlines. But if it ends up stressing you out, and then you don't even know how to motivate yourself, you burn yourself out, then you're self-defeating your purpose, which ultimately I believe is happiness and satisfaction. You create constant dissatisfaction in your life. Does it matter really that like you achieve that or that thing at a special date, at a specific date, or in a specific amount of time? You can tend towards that, but if it does not happen, is that really, really, really important? Don't you have a whole full lifetime in front of you to enjoy the process of being creative and productive? Do you also have to add up to that the stress of achievement in a specific timeline? I don't think so. I'm really straying away from these.
Interesting. So it sounds, you've mentioned mindfulness a number of times, but it sounds a lot like a message of mindfulness and acceptance, and a little bit of kind of compassion for yourself and compassion for where you are and what you want to be doing.
That's compassion, because dissatisfaction and frustration lower your energy levels.
Absolutely.
So when you lower your energy levels, you're less creative and less productive. All
Absolutely.
Right? And when you want to be an achiever, you want to be creative, you want to be productive. So you want to keep your energy levels at a high level.
Of course.
Right? So if you create deadlines and timelines that are maybe not realistic or just, too challenging, hey, that can be good. People do very well under stress. And it's good to have a timeline. Sometimes, it can really be a great asset in your motivation. But again, if it creates more dissatisfaction and frustration and stress than motivation, then it's kind of productive, and it's a matter of balance.
Yeah, it's where do you draw the line?
Exactly, and compassion for yourself too. Yes, indeed, because hey, ultimately the reward, whatever it is, the reward is for yourself. So yeah, you're going to put time and effort in achieving something. But if the deal means that you are going to give so much of yourself and have to sacrifice your happiness on a daily basis for a delayed reward.
Right. I went through a really interesting kind of experience where I encountered mindfulness, and it kind of hit me like 7 tons of bricks. And it hit me in a time in my life where I was very goal-driven and very goal-oriented. And it hit me and kind of disoriented me for quite some time. And I struggled with this idea of how do I simultaneously maintain presence and acceptance and be happy with my current surroundings and, exactly like you said, interact with my environment positively, while at the same time having aspirations and having dreams. And it was something that challenged me for a long time until I realized that it really matters what the nature and intention of your aspirations and dreams are. If your aspirations and dreams are, I would like to get to this deadline and then I will be happy, you're inevitably going to be miserable until that point. But if it becomes, I'm working from a place of passion and joy, and enjoying your surroundings and enjoying your environment with the eventual outcome and hope that you reach a certain destination, say, building a family or building a company. And if you're operating from that place of acceptance and peace, really, then you're much more likely to kind of A, be successful, but B, be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you put it beautifully, and that's what it is. Exactly.
So I think it's interesting that, I wanted to interview you because a lot of the things you do, I think in today's context, are considered superhuman. And to watch some of the YouTube videos, and I'll make sure to post them in the notes here, but I think a lot of people would consider what you do to be superhuman. And your message is, hey, this is what it really means to be your average human. You should be able to move like this.
What's superhuman? What's average?
That's very true.
I think that we are, by evolutionary, biological, or even divine design, we have an amazing opportunity to participate in this creation, in this amazing world we live in, this earth, this universe, all the beauty that is in it, all the magic that is in it. And it starts with seeing that beauty, seeing that magic outside of us, and then to notice that it exists within. Mm-hmm. So we can live beautifully by practicing who we are beautifully, with our thoughts, with our emotions, with our intentions, with our goals, with our actions, in every aspect of what we do, at every moment we're alive. That's what I believe in.
I love it. And I'm so thankful that you took the time to share it with us, because I think, we started off on the note of physical fitness, but really we started to understand a lot more of your life approach and your life philosophy.
Yeah, we could stick to the physical only, we could stick to the fitness only, but that would be a compartment.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we can talk about, I could talk to you about techniques that we use and, how we train. And yeah, that's great. But I like to always bring the conversation back to where it really starts and where it really ends.
Yeah.
And movement is part of this process and continuum. But ultimately, it's about this one shot we have at life and this amazing opportunity, this incredible privilege we have to be alive, and our ability by choice to live at the highest we can, internally to begin with, to create beautiful lives for ourselves. And it's so much about our perception, so much about how we operate our minds.
Absolutely. And I love that as a message.
Movement it's a physical expression of my spirit, and it's a spiritual experience of my body.
Amazing. So, Erwan, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm sure our audience would like to read a lot more and learn about what you're doing. How can people get in touch with you, get engaged with you? Where would you want people to check out to learn more?
Simply go to the website, movnat.com, MOVNAT.com. And then, of course, we're on Facebook, so, Twitter and stuff like that. And not that we want people to spend too much time there, but
of course,
it's the world we live in. And if you start with some inspiration from us and it leads you to actually spend less time in the virtual world and more time in the real world, which is you, your mind, your body, and nature, then it's a beautiful thing. Then we've been successful at what we do.
Incredible. So we'll post that in the notes, and we'll go ahead and also include some of the amazing videos that I found on YouTube. So I want to thank you again for making the time. It was such a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, it was my pleasure, Jonathan. And it was a real pleasure.
Excellent. Well, take care, Erwan. Have a good day.
You too, and everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.